Hello and welcome to this demo. This is a little money plant that stays in my studio. I've got her on a little vintage saucer. So I've just slowed the beginning down so you can see the reference that I'm actually working from. I've also taken a photograph. I created my own little shadow box just using black foam core, and then I just lit, as you can see, from above. Just so I could control the light more and I wanted very dramatic lighting, and I love it when there is a lot of cast shadow. I just think it makes the painting really interesting. So what I do is I have her in my shadow box and I also take a photograph. Just in case, I don't know, for whatever reason, I'll always have that reference with me. In case, well, for real flower, not real flowers, for like fresh flowers, they could wilt or fruit could go off. You've always got a photo reference as a reference in case, like I said, fruit goes off, whatever. So I'm just in the habit of, if I set up a still life, I'll always make sure I take photographs as well. That's all I'm trying to say. Anyway, so working on pastel matte surface here. This is the sand colorway. And it's small, it's about 18 centimeters by 23 centimeters. And I start with the background. I love the dark, dramatic background. I want it dark so that when I come to put the lights on of those leaves, it's really going to pop. So going in with blacks, some blue violets, a little bit of purple, just to create that darkness. I'm using Terry Ludwig's. I also use a lot. There's a color in there. I never know the actual numbers of the Terry Ludwig's, but there's a color that's like a dark navy blue, and I've used that in the background also. So as you can see, I have chosen to put in the background in between the leaves. The reason I've done that is I'm trying to keep those leaves free of any dark background color, because I really want the greens on there to pop, and I don't want to have a hard time getting pastel onto those leaves. So the leaves, I'm using a mixture. This is a mixture between the soft pastels and the pastel pencils. I use the pastel pencils more just to get the shape, and then I'll come in with the stronger color and pigment from the actual pastel sticks, using a variety of greens, more blue-based greens as well as yellow-based greens. And you'll see me come over, that's how I work. I will lay a color down, come over with a darker color or a lighter color, go back, put in my dark. I just keep building up the layers until I get it to a place that I'm happy with it. Again, the pastels I'm using is a mixture between Unison. I even use some Diane Townsend's fluorescent colors in here, using Sennelier, Mount Vision. Yeah, just a mixture of pastel sticks. I wanted to talk a little bit more about how I set up a still life. So me and my still life, the most important thing is the light. As I mentioned in the beginning of the video, I really like dramatic light, and I really enjoy dramatic cast shadows. For me, it just like adds interest to the painting. Now, I'm young in my art journey. I've been doing this in March will be 4 years. And, you know, it may come in 3 months' time where I can't stand cast shadows. They look too photography, and that's just not what I'm into. You know, I'm happy to change, and my tastes will change. But for the moment, that is what I love. I love drama. I love high light. I love the intensity. Oh, can't talk. Intensity of dark and light. So very much like the old masters, what absolutely draws me, you know, like I think Rembrandt's known as the master of light, isn't he? And it's just that darkness within this glow from a beautiful light, and it just causes, like, it creates such a drama and an atmosphere, and I just love it. Anyway, so when I'm setting up a still life, I like a wooden table. That's just my personal preference. You know, I've seen still life set up on shiny white tables or grey tables, but my preference is definitely wood. And again, that's just my aesthetic coming through, what I enjoy. But as I said, I make a shadow box. Now, if you don't know what that is, it's basically exactly what it says. It's a box that you're boxing in around your still life. So you can use a cardboard box and you can paint it a dark color like black is usually a good one to go to. But the idea is to put your still life in the box so that you can control the light. That's the most important thing. So instead of using a cardboard box, I piece 3 pieces of foam core together. I've got different sizes. I'll use A3 sheets and just make like hinges with masking tape. Nothing fancy at all. The idea, like I said, is just to control the light. So then instead of having 4 sides, like a box has 4 sides, you'll have 3 sides. So I'll make like foam core, 3 sides of foam core, and sometimes I'll put a lid on the top also. So you'll have 3 sides plus a lid on the top, and then your light source can come from the front, or you can move your lid open a little bit and put the light source down from the top, which is what I did for this photo. I should actually do a video. It's a little bit easier. It's kind of tricky for me to explain, but they're very easy to make. It doesn't need to be anything fancy. All you're wanting to do is control the light. So you're literally boxing in your still life, and then you are able to manage that light. You're able to exactly source the light where you want it to be, if that makes sense. I probably explained that terribly. After all Christmas and everything, obviously my English has taken a dive. Anyway, I probably will do a video to explain that a bit better. It's easier to see, and then I can talk you through. Or if you Google on YouTube how to make a shadow box for still life painting, I'm sure there'll be loads of tutorials and demos on how to do that. Anyway, so that's what I've got here. Is I made my own little shadow box. So we've got highlight, and like I said, the light is coming from the top. Anyway, that was very long-winded. I hope that was a little bit useful. If it wasn't, I'm sorry. But I'm carrying on here with my little plant. You can see I've added some blue, and you can also see some very yellowy greens in there. It's nice to have a little bit of variety. I think paintings may look a little bit flat if you don't have some variety. So I'm using, as I said, a lot of different greens. Sorry, it's something stuck in my throat there. So a lot of different greens, varying in how dark or light they are. So greens with different tonal values. There I was just showing everyone how dirty my hands are. And I use something to protect my hands called Art Guard. It's from Winsor & Newton. It's a bit like an aqueous cream or like a barrier cream that you can put on your skin, because my hands tend to get very, very dry from touching the pigments, but I don't enjoy using gloves. So I like the barrier cream. I've never had a problem with it interfering with the actual art piece. Now, over 100 years, maybe that I'll be like, oh my goodness, look at that greasy smear that's from the Art Guard. But, you know, it is Winsor & Newton Art Guard, so it's literally for art. So I've never had a problem. So, and also when you come to wash your hands, the pigment comes off so easily with the soap. Sometimes, you know, you've really got to scrub, especially if you're handling some Terry Ludwigs. Those can take quite a while to get out of all your fingerprints and everything. Anyway, so I use the Art Guard. That's what I was busy showing you there. As you can see, just layering and layering and layering. Again, using the pastel pencil to kind of like shift the pastel into shape, to move it around, I should say. Again, always looking at my subject. My eyes are always either looking at my reference photograph or like my still life setup. As you can see in here, so I'm sitting face on, and to the left of me is the actual still life setup, and to the right of me is the photograph. And I tend to flick with both. I work a lot from photographs. I'm just used to that. But sometimes I find if the subject's a bit further away, I still find it hard to gauge perspective, to gauge sizing, where I find if the photograph's right next to me, I just find it easier. My eyes don't have as far to travel, and that probably comes from inexperience. I imagine the more I paint, especially from a real still life setup and not a photograph, the better it will become at perspective. Well, I hope so anyway. I presume it should. So that's probably my amateurness coming through, I'd say. But that's what works for me. It gets me to where I want the painting to be at the end of the day. So that is exactly what I use. I love painting terracotta, ceramics, glass. So of course this little pot was just a joy to do, especially because it's like weathered. It's got some lovely coloring on here. You can see pink coming through with some beautiful oranges, and I really enjoy pink and green together. Another reason why I chose this particular piece was that vintage pink saucer. That vintage saucer has some pink in it. But again, just layering, just looking for all the colors I can see and putting that into my terracotta pot. So I've used oranges, mauvey, white sort of colors, reds, black. And as you can see, like I'll lay in color and then I'll put in lights, midtones, darks, lights, midtones, darks, and just building it up that way until I get to the place where I'm happy with it. And to be honest, usually painting terracotta comes quite quickly, but this one took a little bit of working. I'm not sure why, but I spent quite a while on this little pot. It was fun, of course. If you're enjoying this, then I do have loads of demos up on Patreon. I'll leave a link in the description below if you'd like to check me out. As you can see, I keep going in with my pastel stick and then just tweaking shapes with my pastel pencils. I use both. Some paintings I will use predominantly pastel sticks, and recently actually I've done a few commissions of people portraits where I've actually solely, or mostly I should say, just used pastel pencils. I enjoy using both. Of course, I love the color range you can get with the pastel sticks. Pastel pencils is also pretty amazing, but obviously it's not as vast as the pastel sticks themselves. So moving now on to the shadowy part, I kind of laid out a shadow and I didn't like it. There was actually another, I changed the light just a little bit and I got a better, more interesting shadow on the actual table. So the shadow isn't actually matching what you can see now on the screen in my reference photograph. As you can see, the shadow in the reference photograph is mainly on the left hand side, but I changed the light so that it actually covered the whole table. It made more of a circle, if you know what I mean, around the saucer. I just preferred the look of that. So what I did is I blocked in the shadow first with just a very dark grey and black pastel pencils, and then I'm going over now with the Terry Ludwig. It's like a dark navy blue sort of color. Again, tweaking, getting those shapes correct. This is the dark grey pastel pencil from Carbothello. Just wanting to get the shapes correct, and of course having to lay down that table. I laid in some combination of browns, some quite orangey browns, and then more of muted beigey browns. I think those were mostly unison colors. Going over now with like this. This is Flesh Tone 40% by Caran d'Ache. Just, it's kind of like got a pinky, like a very muted pinkiness to it. I'm just adding that into the table. And I used there a soft tool, which was the blue piece of plastic with like a sponge on the end. The reason I use that is my finger's too fat to get in between those little table spaces you can see between the table and the shadow. So a tool like that, something like an earbud, or a Q-tip, I think they're called in the States, is really quite useful where you need to get into small spaces. Now I'm taking the grain of the wood of the table and I'm using this white. It's a Cretacolor white. It's not a very potent white. It's actually a very mild white. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that, it's not super bright. And I'm just adding a bit of that, and also it's got a nice sharp edge so you can really get the grain of the wood. I really like that in paintings. I like to see the grain of the wood, so that's why I'm adding in the grain. But as you can see, I keep going backwards and forwards to build up this table. Like I've lost some of the grain in certain places. You'll see me, I'll go back in and put that back in. As with every object in here, with the plants, the terracotta pot, I'm working in layers. I'm going backwards and forwards. This is a little piece of NuPastel. I think it's called Nut Brown. It's a really good brown. Again, it's got a nice sharp edge on there, so I can get nice thin lines. As I said, I'm working pretty small. Like if you look at the size of my hand, it's bigger than the terracotta pot. So I am working really small here. So getting nice thin corners is ideal because I'm working so small. Starting now with, this is Perylene Brown from Caran d'Ache, and I'm starting to map in on the saucer. You can see there's a little vintage markings. I don't know what they're called. Can't think this morning. It's still early. But I'm just doing the pattern. There we go. The pattern on the saucer. And again, the white of the saucer. I haven't used white. I've used a grey color. Now, just blocking in the highlight. Sometimes I'll do that without finishing the saucer first. I will just block in where the lightest parts are. That's just for my brain to gauge where those highlights are going, how dark I still need to make the mid-tones, etc. It just helps me gauge. Adding a little bit of more of a yellowy beige. And again, using my pastel pencils have come in a treat, as I said, because I'm working really quite small. So the pastel pencils are really, really quite useful here. Little curly edges. This is I think it's Portrait Pink from Caran d'Ache. I don't know why the camera kept wobbling. I must have kept bashing it or something. I don't know, but the camera's like all over the place. Sorry about that, especially here. It really is moving. I hope it doesn't make you seasick. Sorry about that. There I'm using, just to get a little bit of the dark, I'm using some Terry Ludwig. There is no pastel pencil that is as dark as these Terry Ludwigs, or even close, really. I would love it if a brand could come out with a super, super dark brown, super dark red, and a super dark green. I'd be over the moon. I've got Cretacolor. I've got Carbothello, Cretacolor, Caran d'Ache, and none of those have a dark enough red, brown, or green. So if they could, that would be amazing. I'd be in my happy place. Or if you know of a special brand I've never heard of before, please do comment below, because that I just find will be so useful. I find myself, no matter what subject I'm doing, I'm always looking for those three in pastel pencil, or even a hard pastel stick. Even the hard pastel sticks, the green, they're just not dark enough. The reds or the greens just aren't dark enough. And as you can see, going back in, building up that table, I've got a lot of layers of pastel on there, because I was kind of struggling a little bit. Sometimes I don't really know. I just get stuck in. I don't really have a plan of what I'm doing. It kind of comes to me sometimes as I go along. And this is definitely what happened in the shadow of this painting. as you can see, black, then back over with my lights, just continually building up that table and shadow. Now you can see it better, and I'm very happy with the end result. I enjoyed it, and I feel like I kind of got to what I wanted it to look like. Just finishing off with some Diane Townsend fluorescence. I find when you've got a few layers of pastel on, I find they don't go on so nicely. So I just use them quite sparingly, also because of archival purposes. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this. I shall be doing quite a few little paintings here on my YouTube in time lapse. So if you hit that like and subscribe, you can be notified when I upload new videos. Till next time, bye for now.